To talk about the death of the pool hall, I decided to talk about it in the context of a bigger, I guess, trend in our culture. Because the decline of pool halls, the pool halls aren't alone. It's a general decline of the third place and other third places. Now, what is the third place? The first place is your home. It's where you live, it's where you sleep, it's where you live your life. The second place is your workplace, where you go to work, where you make the money, make the living. And then the third place is where people congregate, who have similar interests, similar pursuits, a similar purpose. And third places have existed ever since humans began gathering and living in towns and cities. So examples of a third place, the biggest and best example is church. Places of worship, whether it be a mosque or a temple, a synagogue, or the majority in America is a Christian church, whatever denomination. Then you have places like, of course, the pool hall, which is what this video is about, bowling alleys, concert venues, like small concert venues, like bars, pubs, taverns, nightclubs, libraries. I think I mentioned bowling alleys. Anywhere where people get together. Another one that's worth mentioning is tabletop gaming stores or comic book shops, bookstores, places like that. Now, across the board in the United States over the last 20 years, especially, this was really accelerated during COVID, but I don't blame COVID for it. I think COVID just really accelerated a trend that was already well on its way. And basically what this trend is that since we've had the internet, the development of the smartphone, social media, streaming services, just this wide selection of video games where people can distract themselves with with all types of media consumption, mixed with the downturn of the economy, with the onset of inflation, going out is just not worth it anymore. But then how we relate to each other and how we like to spend our time has also evolved. So people are not getting together in the third place as much anymore. And that's evident in the decline across the board of attendance at public events. I think another one where the statistics are pretty clear is like MLB attendance is down. Other professional sports have seen a decline in attendance, which could all be attributed to economics, the expenses of it all, but it's also just people don't want to leave their houses anymore. There's a lot of talk online about people not trusting other people anymore, people being annoyed by other people, just not seeing togetherness, face-to-face togetherness as worth it anymore. And I guess that's up to you, to the individual, to judge ultimately whether that's good or bad. I see it as a negative, because you can trace a lot of mental illness back to social isolation. You can also, I think, kind of put a lot of the division and the chaos that we have in the public forum with politics. I think it can be traced back to people being isolated and not being around other people. Now, another kind of interesting thing that I'd like to mention is that throughout our history, we've had 3 major economic downturns. You had one in the late 1800s, around the 1880s. Of course, there was the Great Depression, and now you could argue that we're in one now. It's just, you know, people do make arguments either way, but with the first two, you had this phenomenon called forced bachelorhood, where men didn't make enough money to support a family. So what do men do if they're unemployed or underemployed and they're alone? Well, used to, they would congregate, they would drink, and they would gamble. And so that's when pool and billiards really was at its peak, was when economic conditions were at their worst. So the 1880s was a heyday for pool. The Depression was a big boom for pool, because you had, you know, thousands, millions of unemployed men who were single, didn't have a family to support, and needed something to do. I would say we're in the middle of that now. I think you do have a lot of single men, a lot of isolated men that are unemployed or underemployed. But the reason why you're not seeing a pool boom is because instead of going to the pool hall, guys are retreating into video games, they're retreating into pornography, they're retreating into Netflix, solitude, dissipation at home. And so I, you know, can't really make a judgment as to whether or not that's better or worse. That's just how it is. Now, more specifically to how pool has changed with the times. When I first moved to Houston, there was somewhere around 95 pool halls. And that number right now is probably less than half of that. At one time, I believe the number of Slick Willie's locations was 25. They closed 17 of them. And all of the Barneys, all of the Cornbread billiards halls in Houston, they all closed. So like on my drive home between downtown Houston and the exit going to Pearland, which is southeast of, you know, it's south of the Beltway, there used to be 8 locations of Barney's and Slick Willie's between here and home, and all of them have closed. And the kind of the traditional pool hall where you just had a bar and some tables and maybe some short order food, you know, low preparation, low quality food, those places have begun to vanish. And what it's being backfilled with are nicer places, but there are places that have other attractions, like higher quality food, a karaoke night, and a lot of other stuff that's other than pool. Pool is kind of been put to the side and is not the central attraction that it used to be. So yes, pool, there are still, I think the places are better, but they're not the traditional pool hall that we used to know. Now, other things that have closed and have kind of contracted around here is, I'm also a target archer. I enjoy archery. My the archery club that I used to go to just to be social with the sport, that closed. Used to be into living history. Used to be a lot of living history groups I've been. All of that went away with COVID. So there's a lot less opportunities really to be social. And ultimately, again, this is not a doom video, because I'm not even saying, you know, what all this, the product of all of this is necessarily good or bad. It's just an observation. If I had my choice, I would rather people be less involved with media and with video games and such, and be more willing to congregate in person. Which is why, as everybody has kind of gone in that direction, I've gotten more involved in my local parish. I'm Catholic, and we have a pretty dynamic community of people that get together, and we do charitable work, and we're of a like mind, and have a lot of similar values. So it's a good support community. It's a good fellowship community, and that's kind of what I do. That's kind of the direction my life has taken. But, you know, I'd kind of like to see the old style, community style pool room make a comeback. And hopefully the pendulum will swing back the other way one day. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think, if you see the same things in your region where you live. I always like to compare notes with what's happening in other places. Have a great day.